Hello, Lori.
Hello.
Welcome. It's so great to take this time to chat with you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Mm.
So I'm going to introduce you from your bio, but also as my friend and my colleague. I love that you call yourself a career doula. So you're facilitating careers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes that's on every email you send: when mind intelligence bows to heart intelligence, life harmonizes.
Mm.
So we're going to dig into that more because there's obviously a lot there to share.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited to have you here as all parts of you. But I'm curious, how do you define yourself? How do you explain who Lori is?
Well, thank you so much again for the invitation.
Yeah.
You and I both know how powerful that word is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And being invited to have this conversation with you is precious to me. So, I do get truth tears every once in a while. And we've talked before about how spirit touches each of us. I know you happen to be a person who gets the chills. And for me, I get tears. And so right now they're in my eyes. So don't mind me. It's just so nice.
That's beautiful. I'm getting chills.
I was thinking about this today because I had a conversation with someone this morning who happened to have my same birthday. I couldn't believe it. It's very rare to meet somebody who's born on June 30th. I don't know. It's just like such an even number, and it's smack in the middle of the year, it separates the year. And the reason why I even shared with this woman that that's my birthday is because I told her, I said, I'm a triple Cancer, and she said, well, what's that? She didn't really follow astrology. And I am not an expert at astrology, but I do know I'm a triple Cancer, which really defines me as heart, earth, sun, moon, whatever all of it is, And, I've been kicked out of many movie theaters for overcrying, and
I didn't know that was possible.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Elephant Man, The War Horse, The Bear, the Disney film, it's just really my whole life. I've really been leaning into the fire to season into the wholeness, the fullness of life as much as possible, to be able to finally learn and love that life is love and pain together. And that, we have nothing that is real or exciting or alive, without both of those together. So as a career doula, starting off as a recruiter, I realized that the career space is a particular area of a great deal of existential pain. In between work, those transition points, people feel like they might die. Like, what if I never get hired again? What if I'm continually rejected? And so the word doula really fits because we think about doulaship typically with babies being born, which is also a very miraculous and dangerous enterprise. Life is coming, but could easily not come. There's so much there. And then there are death doulas, that transition, from life into the other world, the other experience where spirit now lives. And that, kind of a more pure spirit realm rather than spirit and body. And so a career doula is, let's take all those mini transition points and let me go ahead and touch that with love to say, yes, this is traumatizing. But that trauma, that wound, that is that's where the growth is. That's where we live into it. If we can recognize that this transition point is opening the door to something potentially miraculous, if we stay open and curious to it. So I'm this heart-based woman, saying, hey, can I just love you here through your trauma? And can I show you the poetic nature of that? So I hope that people understand there's safe space here and that I always say to them, I'm in your back pocket. Put me back there with your favorite accountant, your favorite mortgage consultant, whatever you need so you feel covered in a world that feels chaotic.
Yeah.
So
that's so amazing. And also it's very much, they're having a rebirth of their own. So doula is so appropriate because it's facilitating evolution and everyone needs support with that. So how beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why, and me, that my spirit animal, which shifts kind of through time, but really through this entire time for sure of COVID and the pandemic, And really probably a few years before that as well. Since moving to San Diego, it's been the monarch butterfly, and their life journey of shedding the old, awakening the imaginal, and flying free. So a lot of people who come to me through that painful channel of work, which, can feel really constrictive, right? Because some people are they're working where they feel it's the only door open to them. Maybe it's not even aligned with their heart, their gifts, their joy. But it's still a very painful point. And people come to me and they just really want to fly. They just want to get it done. And what I've found through the years is I want more time with people to take them back and say, hey, what's imaginal? What are you even attracted to? Where's the magic? And even before we should touch that, what's real and where's the suffering? Where's the heat? And what should we look at in terms of shedding? You even mentioned that to me today earlier. It's like, what is it that we get to shed as we move into 2023? And boy, it's a powerful conversation, shedding.
Yeah. I just got chills as you said that, because it's forever, right? We're forever shedding parts. Forever. If we're lucky.
Yes. And with each shed, I sit in this backyard here since I moved from the Bay Area, where the monarchs come straight up from Mexico. And, I had never observed one through their complete life cycle. I had no idea that they shed about 5 times before the chrysalis. Wow. And, each time they're doing that, they start off as this little itty bitty, the cutest, tiny little caterpillar, little black eyes, and they start eating ravenously. They're kind of like humans, that they're just this consumer, they just have to consume. They can't get enough, the milkweed. And then at one point they're really full. They can tell this is tight, this is constrictive. And they crawl to a place that they hope is out of the way. And then they're really good about getting still. It's a little dangerous, it's certainly vulnerable because they could be picked off by a predator, but they're not going to grow if they don't take this chance. And so they find this spot, they wait, and then when it's right, they squiggle out of the skin. You can see it come off as a little black ball. But then they wait again, they're still again, and then they crawl back and they keep eating and keep eating. And so with each one of those sheds, like you said, we're constantly doing it. There's a little bit of a growth. And I was even talking to my husband about this today, as like our marriage, we've been married 31 years, and every day it's different. Every day there's something new to look at and shed and transform. And what's really unique for us to realize is we're opposite temperaments. So my evolutionary path, or what I need to do in a situation, may feel very different than his authentic path. And so how do we do that? How can we even collaborate or cooperate in a shed, that's supportive of each other? And I pointed out to him in the outside, I just said, that is a chaotic garden. There is life and death happening out there. There is continuous creativity, but it's harmonious. So
we can coexist. Yeah.
Yes, through the chaos.
Yeah. I love that. You've said so many things I want to just ask more questions about. But, a big reason why we're doing this interview series is to get into authenticity. And you're tackling it from the perspective of career and employment and job and work path, which I know so many people are in transition right now with their careers and their jobs. Tell me what you're seeing there in terms of like moving into authenticity and on authentic career path.
Gosh, let me just celebrate that word. Oh, thank you for making that the focal point. Authenticity, just even as a word and as a goal, as an understanding, that's what we all strive for, is really at the center of a lot of Gabor Mate's discussions lately. He talks about how trauma is any particular moment when you cannot show up authentically, and you're traumatized because you split from yourself. You actually experience self-abandonment. So, as a career doula, I see people every single day being traumatized. You can be in a meeting and you're not sure, how do I offer my perspective? How do I even interview to be seen exactly for who I am? What if I'm a deep introvert? Do I have to force myself to be a typical American extrovert in order to be accepted and received? And if they have to force themselves into that, they're self-abandoning again, and they're traumatized. So, what I realize and recognize now is that leaders, recruiters, HR professionals, so many of us that are touching people and kind of have an impact or an influence on their day-to-day experience. As much as we can do the work to work on our own wounds as well, find our own authentic voices, and then hold space with curiosity and a sense of neutrality and appreciation for the difference, and start to say to people, we need you here as yourself. Diversity and cooperation, two key principles for proliferation of life. There's a recent article I read recently, the Harvard Business Review, that talked about how emotional and social safety is the most important aspect that a leader needs to look at in order for their business to succeed, beyond anything else.
It's about time.
Right. It is so
Jeez
true.
Louise.
Oh my gosh, we have so much untapped power and creativity. If we would sit down, and ask everyone in the room and understand, the beautiful benefits. If my husband, if he and I were in a room, and I'm using him because I know his temperament so well. So we're in a room, and if somebody brings up a new idea, I'm sanguine. So that means I'm a hummingbird, let's say. And my husband is deeply melancholic. He might be molten lava. He might be center core energy, and I'm up here, woo! And someone says, here's a new idea that we have for the business. My first reaction, my natural reaction, is to lean in and to join it and to say, this is awesome. This is new. I love change. And, I live there. I think it's fun. I like the chaos. I know it leads to things. It's the last thing in the world my husband wants. So if he speaks first, he's going to say, it's going to break. It won't work. People won't like it. And he'll go through that. Typically, he will be ignored, or he'll be, pushed out of that circle because he's not joining. And what I'm sharing with people now is there's a gift if you have that capacity to see down the road and around the corner. If you are sensitive to potential pitfalls, if you are sensitive to the traumas that people are feeling, and you want to sensitize the rest of us. So I spend my time every day as a recruiter, and what I'm really doing as I work with leaders as well is to encourage them into creating those environments, getting to know the differences and celebrating that with their people one at a time. But even with everything I just said, even all of those that have a chance to influence, the greatest evolutionary shift comes when each individual person decides for themselves, no matter what the environment, no matter if the leader invites it or doesn't, no matter if they're in an interview with a talented, somebody who's talented at interviewing or not, somebody who's a bully or somebody who's welcoming, that you practice authenticity, that you learn the basic tenets for how to show up real, like the Velveteen Rabbit, and Snuggles, like wherever you are, get rubbed raw, for your realness. And that's when this world is going to really shift from that fear-based consciousness to love-based consciousness. If each one of us learns that, how do I show up authentically? And it's actually not that complex to do.
No, but I find that there's a lot of fear. Like, fear is the biggest block because we all want to be accepted and we don't want to be the outlier. And that's, I think, what stops a lot of people. Would you say?
Absolutely. Completely. It's the fear. It's also tied to practical experience, because they are like, my husband would say, I already was rejected by, so many other employers, or even my own family told me I was moody, or whatever. So there's evidence, somebody might say, but the craft that we can learn even from a biomimic standpoint, if we look to nature, how is it that nature, in a very complex, so much happening at any moment, an evolving environment, how can nature show up authentically? How can each being show up as it is? And so nature has learned how to live in an uncertain world, but privy to or sensitive to the various boundaries that exist in their environment and boundaries that they have. So, I often like to talk about the cactus. Cactus has all those really thorny spines, or whatever you might, what they're called, and, the cactus is so full of water. And without those spines, every single animal would go ahead, put in a straw, and that cactus is dead in a day. It just wants to drink all that water. And so the cactus has to understand, I got to give you some boundaries. I'm going to have some prickles, because it's not in service to you if I just fall to pieces and have no more water and I die in this landscape. but I am going to put out a flower a couple times a year that's full of nectar where certain animals can come and partake of this water. And I'm going to just stay. And so I teach a lot about the beauty and the natural, I keep looking at my garden when I say it, but the natural gift, of these boundaries. And, in our current environment, boundaries, my mom taught me boundaries were a no-no. You're supposed to just be out, right? Remember that?
Well, the way you're describing it, boundaries actually underscore the authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
This is what I am. I'm a cactus. This is how I'm made. Nature made me this way. And I'm celebrating it. And I'm also giving and I'm receiving and I'm in the balance with the ecosystem. But don't take advantage of me.
Yeah, exactly. My husband and I use the analogy of rattlesnake because, if we get into a fight and he goes straight to a bite, I'll say to him, hey, you have something to tell me? I appreciate a rattle first, because, right? If you bite me, I'm like, here's what 2 things are going to happen possibly. 1, I'm going to bite you back, or I'm going to run, because you're scaring me and you bit me. And I say, but if you rattle, I might stop at that boundary and I'm going to check in, I'm going to do that. And so a lot of this is really appreciating boundaries and not being so existentially put off by them, but instead looking to understand what somebody's is. And then that, in my little quote again, then, too, is like, where's that harmony when our mind intelligence bows to our heart intelligence? If we come into our full wild instincts, if we can learn even from nature, from the skunk, from the rattlesnake, from the cactus, so much, then how can we understand what is it that I need? Who am I? And what boundaries do I have? And how do those coexist with others? And then recognize, since you and I both don't have the prickles or the rattle or the white stripe, we know that we want to be in each other's lives. So I might actually step over a boundary because there's not a prickle there. There's not a white line. But through your voice and through your decision or choice to share with me, because we choose to be in relationship, then I have a chance to go ahead and learn that and take a step back and come back into alignment. And that's what, I struggle with my marriage every single day. We practice this every single day. And so this boundary thing is perpetual. It's like authenticity it's not stagnant. It's constantly transitioning. It's constantly shifting and growing. And so the boundaries are shifting and growing, and we're learning, and we have to recognize I'm not a bad person if I overstep that boundary. I am learning. And it also means I care because I'm in your space. If it's a cooperative relationship, not the boundary, other stuff that we know about too.
That sounds like such a healthy way to exist. I mean, you're talking a lot about your marriage, but also I'm just thinking about every other relationship in your life.
Yeah.
If you can have that amount of respect for one another, especially in the workplace, like, I work for myself, but I hear my friends talk about this coworker, that boss, that other department, even it's just a whole pain in the ass department.
Oh my God. So whole department.
They can, right? Or whatever, power struggle, fear, all that fun stuff. But I love how you said, how do you begin? It's beginning with yourself. It's making the choice, right? Of I'm going to live authentically. And that's very brave.
I appreciate you using the word brave because that takes us back to nature again. When I teach about authentic relating within many of the other coaching aspects, doulaship that I'm teaching, one of the specifics about boundaries and connecting and communicating in a way that's authentic is I actually am inspired and speak of wolves. Wolves as a pack animal that are actually really, really good at demonstrating authentic community, authentic relating, communication, balance. They exist within their ecosystems, and yes, they're predators, but within a balanced sense that actually helps the whole ecosystem. We've all seen that little video, about Yellowstone, and how the wolves saved Yellowstone because the river banks were actually dissolving, because without the wolves, all the hoofed animals came out of the mountains and they overate the prairies. And so then the river boundaries or edges started to crumble and the river could no longer flow. And as soon as they brought the wolves in and they had that balanced predation, the animals went back up into the hills, and then all of the green could grow and the trees could stay, a whole thing just fell back into order.
Yeah.
And so when I share with people, I say, this is going to be about wolf speak. And I think people are like, oh my God, is this, scare? And I was like, no, actually, here's what happens. It's so interesting with wolves is that there's sort of this process they go through of first signaling safety, asking permission, then engaging, then checking in again, and then adapting. So if we just think about it within a wolf scenario, let's say you have a wolf that's enjoying a meal. That makes me sad. I can't see it, but anyways, I know it's happening. Okay. So
part of the ecosystem, Lori. It's okay.
I know. This is me. This is my triple cancer. I got to look.
You start crying.
I got to look. I got to see the movie all the way through. But they're having its meal and the other wolf comes along and wants some. So the first thing it's going to do is it actually kind of puts its ears a little bit kind of off, not in the angry way, but more of like, I'm not here, not pricked up like this, like dominant, but it's sort of like, hi, it's like, hi, hi, just a little bit of signaling safety. And then it'll step a little closer and start lick its own lips and maybe lick the lips, of the other one to say, is there permission for me to join in? And if there is, then it'll join in. And then at one point it's checking in and the other wolf's like, that's enough, And so the wolf adapts, and steps back and has had enough and maybe tries to find another meal or something. And so within a work situation, I've coached people through some really intense conversations where they can be in a room and somebody can be particularly aggressive. They don't know how to authentically show up in the moment. They're feeling like maybe there's a whole group that's being attacked. Maybe something's very inappropriate. Maybe it's something really sensitive. How do they even join in? And the first thing that I share with people is signal safety. So you can say, whoa, this is a big issue and I can feel the energy in the room, how we're all joining in on this. Even if it's something that really feels potentially destructive or something that really gets your own heart going, you still can join in and signal safety. Sure. Like, I see this, And then after that, it's say, I've been a recruiter for 20 years and I've got a perspective that is built from that might apply to this moment if you'd like to hear it. And then if they say, yeah, we'd like to, now I'm safer because twice now I've signaled safety and now I have permission. And then I share. Now, here's the thing. After I share my point, then I say, what does everybody else think about that? What does that make you feel? You have to then get back in for the feedback.
Yeah.
Because if I leave it with just my point, it's inauthentic for the group because it still has a bit of dominance. Here's my point. And then I leave it hanging on everybody. But I want to come back into an integrated kind of harmonious place to say, so now what do you think about that? And let's say everybody comes down on me and says, that's the worst thing I've ever heard, then I'm going to recognize, okay, I'm going to have to adapt and say, this isn't fitting this environment. What if it so doesn't fit the environment that I eventually start looking for a new job? Because I recognize that this collective group is going in a whole different direction, than what's aligned with my value system. Now I know it's true.
And your authentic self, right? And if you're in your authentic self, you can kind of remove some of the emotion from that and just honor yourself and say, wait, I love myself so much. I'm going to find people that are in alignment with this authenticity, which is me, rather than force myself, which so many of us have done, into scenarios that don't align with who we are authentically. What a difference, right?
It really is. That idea, nature and animals, they're always constantly adapting to what's true. They're not adapting to a psychological process. They're not, adapting to coping mechanisms, They're like, this is really real. There's not water here, or there's another, pack over here. So I got to make my pack over here, or this goes together. It doesn't. And so when we can find out, when we can ask in a way that's in harmony as much as possible and discover things, then in that scenario I just gave you, there was a chance for people to hear something new. I was authentically present. I did share what I know based on my 20 years of experience. But if it is not what they need and it's not received, that's just true. That's just authentic. That's real.
It's just clarity, right? Like, it's just
clarity.
It's clarity.
It's clarity. Yes.
It's not about, how dare Lori with her 20 years of experience. It's just, no, it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's such a great example. And I love how you use nature so frequently, because I relate to that so well too. So it always really clicks when you give those examples. I'm curious how you found your path to your authentic self.
Wow. That's a doozy, isn't it? That's a good one.
It's a deep
What a
one, I
beautiful question to ask people. I love that. The cheers are coming.
know.
When your life brings you, and there's many we often have, and depending on what we're born into, it's going to show up in a different way. But when your life brings you to a complete, as they say, like a night of the soul, or like a darkness, like where your whole life breaks apart, and work, home, health, money, family, geography, everything, if it all happens at one time, you really recognize, woo, it's like the ego goes, oh my God, and the soul is going, woo, this is awesome. We have a complete rebirth happening here.
Yeah.
And so I began it specifically, I would say, on September 11th, 2001, the day that the Twin Towers fell. I was 8 months pregnant with my one and only child, and the phone rang, and I was told by my sister-in-law, turn on the TV, and I turn it on, and I see the first tower, and I'm thinking, what a horrible accident. By the time the second tower was hit, I knew it wasn't an accident. I realized that we were witnessing some terrible violence, and that this was indicative, of a great deal of pain. And I went into labor, like six weeks early. And so my husband rushed me to the hospital. There were so many women in there. A lot of women went into early labor over this. And thankfully, for the medicine and the doctors and, pharmacists, I got the proper medication. But once I got home, I looked at my husband and I said, I can't stay in banking anymore. I need to practice radical kindness as a career. He's like, there's a path.
Triple cancer. Come on.
Right. Exactly. And that's all I could, I remember when my recruiter called me about some other job in health, finance, up in Washington State. And I said, I'm switching career paths. Recruiters hate to hear that, because when you have your talent, you want to keep calling on them. And he's like, oh, really? And he goes, well, what? And I said, radical kindness. And he's like, uh-huh. And he didn't understand, And I said, and I realized that radical kindness actually it exists in banking. It should. It doesn't necessarily, but it could. I'm sure there are many people who do that, but it can exist anywhere. But I knew that there was something different. What I felt bubbling up at the time was that I wanted to connect with people so that they felt safe. I just kind of knew I wanted them to feel like there was somebody that held unconditional love for them in a way. I kept envisioning myself of, just being like holding their back office systems or operations. So they felt like, oh, I know that there's somebody caring, watching out for me so I can do my work. I wasn't sure what it was. But as I was going through that process of imagining that, I became very ill, and I had a complete breakdown of my body, an autoimmune. I had a rash over my entire body. Left side of my body was paralyzed. I had blepharitis. Both eyes were swollen shut. And I couldn't even put just a little bit of water without the hives everywhere. I got an onset of fibromyalgia. I lost about 25 pounds, which brought me well below 100. And my hair turned white and was falling out. And I was breastfeeding and trying to raise a baby. And I was laid off from my job. So because this was like the whole thing was going on with, we had the recession and I was in financial services. Everything broke down. My husband wasn't working. We had to sell our home in 6 weeks, and we moved in with my parents. And my husband and my father don't get along. So this was traumatizing. And I was broken down to nothing except for my absolute love and commitment to my child, to live and find my way back to vibrancy, and to align myself with something loving and real. And I made that commitment to my child. And really, it wasn't even only for him. It was a commitment to love. And I know for me, any time that I divert from authenticity or from what's real, I am picking away at love. I'm doing something that's actually weakening it, in the fabric of the world. And so I had to go to acupuncture 4 times a week. I was so ill. My adrenals were shot, and it was very expensive, but we took money out of our house. We had sold the home, and luckily we had a little money, and that was great. And I remember this beautiful man who was from China, incredibly talented acupuncturist in the ancient ways. And, I kept saying to him, make the rash go away. At first I was very surfacey, and he said, I'm like, please. And he said, we're going to start at the center of your exhaustion. We have to start there. And I just bawled, and he did that. And he said to me, I have good news. And I said, I'll take it, And he said, your body wants to heal. You're taking to this. And that was really the start of my path towards leaning into the fire, literally the heat, of the fevers and everything I had going on, and deciding to just never back down and to just heal and lean and question everything. I no longer could go to allopathic doctors. They didn't understand my whole breakdown. So it was just a process that started when I was 36. I'm 57 now. And that was the beginning. And it was the greatest year of my life. It was an absolute birth.
Yeah.
Into authenticity. Yeah. So grateful.
Thank you for sharing. That's a very powerful story. I can feel how it impacted you and everyone around you in the most beautiful way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did. I mean, I remember one part that was so fundamental is I found out I was allergic to wheat. This is before it was a thing.
Yeah, right? Oh my God.
And I didn't know how to eat. I was such a compliant eater. And I thought, what is there to eat? And I'm at my mom's house crying, going, I don't know what to eat. She puts in front of me salmon and broccoli. And I'm like, oh, there's food. I'm like, see all this processed stuff. It's just like there was so much to see. There was so much truth to see through all of the distractions. It's just dropping away. That authenticity to me seems such a big part of that is, what am I distracted by? What is clouding my vision? What is keeping me separate from self and spinning? And this experience was a stop me in my tracks kind of moment. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I love your authentic self. I mean, since we met, which was online, it was so clear that we're in resonance. And I think a lot of it is because of the expression that you just shared. And, I call it living a soul-centered life, but it's the same thing. It's like, what does the soul want to express, and really honoring that and being in tune with that. So
I've always noticed you've held that space for me. I just cheers. It's really, really rare but it's really rare to come into a relationship with somebody who promises you, who says, I am a student, I am a follower, I am a supplier of authenticity in the world. Like I look for it, I invite it in all its forms. And you can be real in your woundedness. You can be real in your temper tantrum. You can be real in your passion, your confusion, your, expressiveness, whatever, because all of it's going to be one way or another as we are still trying to bounce off this world and understand it and come to know ourselves. But the key is when you find someone like you that says, I'm going to breathe through this and I'm going to hold this space for authenticity, and you are safe to actually be all these things, and we get to go ahead and know each other through this experience, that I think it's so grounding, because I think at the fundamental center, fear for people is a fear of abandonment. And it goes back to caveman days, that if you were abandoned from your little group, you're dead. You're eaten by that saber-toothed tiger. And we still have that reptilian brain. We still have that fear-based ego, very alive. And it seems like in order to choose an authentic life, in order to choose a life where your brave heart is in the lead, you actually are quieting, you're trying to shush, like you would a baby, shh, 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 you're safe, to that ego that is so scared of the night. And so as we're practicing that right now, to have someone like you in my life, and I give this back to you as well, I can say, I'm not going to abandon you. You get to actually be kind of on these outer edges or experimental, and you're not going to be abandoned. It's safe here with me. And I hope that for everyone in the world at some point,
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah. I mean it.
I know. I feel it. I feel it all the way over here.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing, all of you. Every time you show up, it's always all of you. And I so honor and appreciate that, because you are such a shining example to so many people. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity to join in with you. And thank you for raising this very important concept. And just want everyone to keep that word on the tip of their tongue, starting with 2023 and beyond. Authenticity. Let that be your word for the year, you know?
Thank you. You heard it here first.
It's 2023's word.
I love it. I love that so much. I think it is. I think as a collective, we're moving in that direction, and certainly we're all aligned with it. So we'll just keep pushing forward and being examples. That's all we can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All we can do, and practice that unconditional acceptance of that. And it takes some breathing. There's this sometimes capacity to this, like, I'm going to put up a boundary. I'm going to put up a protection. It's what my husband and I are dealing with all the time. And it's like, keep that down, stay curious and open. And every single person, every single animal, every single cloud, every single whatever is a teacher, leading us greater, deeper into authenticity, into the center of what's real, the singularity of it all.
I think also, like, you're talking about these moments where it's really easy to get like tense and scared and shielded. And I'm noticing that when I like notice it and take a moment to just breathe through it and let it all happen, it's so much less pain than I thought it would be. My brain goes into these places of reptilian mindset that I'm really going to get killed by someone for being myself. So, it's a practice. We're always practicing this all the time, no matter how committed we are,
Yeah. And I think giving ourselves a little space sometimes is really important. Bless it, my husband is such a foil for me, but I'll keep bringing him up. But, he'll say, Lori, what's going to happen next year in the world? Or what would you do if blah? And I'll say to him, gosh, that's a really deep question. And I say, I'm going to go ahead and contemplate that and dream on that for a few days. And then let's bring it back up. And he's like, tell me now, and I'll just say, and what I've come to realize is that the ego really needs an immediate response. Like it's reactive. And when I say that I'm going to go ahead and take, and I know you do this all the time. So when I say that, let's go ahead and take that space, let's give some spaciousness, then it's like we're listening to the poet in us. It's like the heart that's it. I liken it to a party. It's like the ego is the one telling the jokes in the middle, or the one that's just trying to kind of, bully the crowd or like be in control. And the heart is in the corner whispering beautiful love poetry, and just like entrancing those that will come and listen. And so I would never make a decision without at least, and I tell all my candidates this as well, is I say, hey, they might say, Lori, I want the job. And I'd say, hey, fantastic. I said, let's go ahead and take 48 hours, dream on this, and let's touch base in 2 days and see how this is germinating. And if you feel magnetically drawn in, let's talk about, again, then how to really make this happen. What does the offer look like? What is the whole process? But I find that settles everybody in, and ultimately every group that's connected, whether it be the hiring manager, the whole organization, patients, because I work in healthcare, everybody's served if we've given that space for the heart, to be heard.
I love that. I love it. Yeah. More time and space just to be versus taking action is always a good idea, in my opinion.
Oh my God. Me too. Yeah. It's a slow movement. I got my whiteboard, when I hear from people, I write it down, and right there, I think this is actually written. It's been here for a year, so it's burned into my whiteboard. Like if I took a pen, like a sponge, and never come off.
Erase it.
But how that happens. But it's like right up there. It says slow movement. It's up there. Another word that's up there: higher love. Another word: allowing. Ocean of creation. These various things that are just kind of coming, but the slow movement is feminine, and it's something that we are trying to, it's the tortoise and the hare, right? That old classic Aesop fable. It's that tortoise that really is the one that gets across the line, and everything doesn't have to be so rapid, so manifesting just, for the sake of it. We can breathe, just like we started off this time together. We paused for 5 breaths. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Lori, thank you so much. Is there anything else to be shared about anything?
The last thing I would just want to share is that, how timely it is to have this connection with you just a few days before 2023. And I think I'm anticipating that this will happen in my body. And so I just want to say to anybody else who might be watching this, is that it's pretty natural when the new year starts that we restart our clock one way or another. Like if you are a commission-based person, or even if you're working for another person, you're in a company, or it's just the new year, you're stay at home, you're taking care of your family's home, whatever your role may be, there's something about a new year taking over that can create some high expectations for performance. You know, can you be like, I'm going to work out finally, you know, or I'm going to get that new job, or I'm going to, have to start over with my commissions and, all of this. And I want this year, I'm so consciously going to enter into it with several weeks as if January 1st is pushed out, in a way, or that it really just kind of bleeds into the year, and front loaded with purposeful sleep, slowness, yin yoga, just even just the word instead of like the declarations and all that kind of stuff, is to practice that slow movement with the new year. I think it will allow the heart to speak, and for collaborations, for the magic to occur, for you to recognize a new friend that comes along, maybe with an idea or anything like that. So just to kind of hold that slowness, that open space for anything in January, and don't let the momentum of January 1st, New Year's resolutions, hijack your energy and your spirit.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm hearing, listen to your own timing.
Yes, definitely.
Beautiful.
January 1st is a mighty marker. It has a life of its own.
It sure can. It sure can. We can start over at any point. That's the reality.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my God. So true. Beautiful.
Love it. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Blessings to you.
Thank you for this time.